Welcome to Women's Wealth and Wellness Unleashed. I'm Lori Falk, and together with my three powerhouse co-hosts and a slew of thought leaders and luminaries, we're bringing you a scintillating talk show style podcast that will disrupt the worlds of wealth and wellness as we know them today. We invite you to go on this journey with us as we offer you a paradigm shift that empowers you to change your approach to these key areas of your life. Join us and discover the truth that the future of wealth and wellness begins with you.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to another inspiring episode of Women's Wealth and Wellness Unleashed. Today, we really want to showcase our co-host, Lesley Thomas, who is such a valuable member of this group because she provides really a balancing perspective on a number of fronts. For one, as you know, she's based on the other side of the pond and reminds us that the whole world is not an extension of the United States. Get to have another perspective. She's also more more involved in the wealth rather than the wellness aspect of this conversation. So although we've been coming together from the all sides, Lesley started at a different point and has provided a really valuable perspective. And her platform, if you haven't checked her out yet, is she is the money confidence coach. And I had the real pleasure of meeting her a couple of years ago in another context, and she did a webinar that was really mind-blowing. Because I know a lot of us know that money is about mindset. Lesley has really found a deeper way to get to it that was visceral, that really excited me and everybody that participated. And we were chatting recently just about what's going on in the world right now and the uptake of fear porn that's going on about, scarcity and the lie of lack, as we refer to it. Because, of course, here we are seeking to reclaim our power and connection and get beyond distraction with those things. But Lesley has more tools about that than any of the rest of us here. So we really wanted her to share that today. So Lesley, is that a good opening for you to step into to share your wisdom with us?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Susan. This is quite a time, quite a ride for everybody collectively right now. And we are once again having a shared experience like we did in 2020, but this is a very different experience. We're not a political podcast, so this is not going to be a political comment. But a lot of the fear at the moment is coming from us being too connected, I think. And what I mean by that is, if we were living back in the 1970s, 1980s, before we had access to the internet, before we had access to mobile phones, etc., would we collectively be experiencing the fear that so many people are experiencing at the moment?
Probably not.
Exactly. We wouldn't. So what that suggests to me is the fear we are feeling is a collective fear. It is not our own fear. It is not being driven by us. It's being driven into us. But it's only being driven into us because we're allowing it to. We're allowing ourselves to accept what is being said by those who are either actually feeling fearful, enjoying the power of creating that fear, or reporting what is happening in a way that is not taking full regard to how their message is landing. And I think that is really, really important, because people cannot make us as individuals feel anything. Only we can create a feeling inside of us. And when we realize that the responsibility for how we feel, and as a reaction to that feeling, how we behave, then we can choose to do something about it. And we can reclaim our power. Because what happens when we become fearful, when we listen to what's going on in the stock market and we hear the word tariffs and we hear the word recession, job losses, etc., we are collectively taking on that fear rather than seeing it as messages of what might happen if certain courses of action are taken by certain people. How we receive that information and what we do with that information, that is down to us. And I am really, really passionate about helping people to understand that nobody is going to come to save us, because it is nobody else's responsibility to save us. It is our responsibility. What is our responsibility is to take the information we are hearing and decide its individual relevance to us. And if that information is relevant to us, we are in an industry that could be affected by tariff increases. We are in an industry that could be affected by the rise of AI. We can't just sit back and wait for those things to happen. Or we can sit back and then it is on us that those things happen. We lose our job. Things get more expensive. We suddenly find our job is taken over by somebody else and downgraded. And we either lose our job or we get downgraded as far as our salary is concerned, etc. Or if we're running our own business, we suddenly find the market we're in is a lot harder because other people are taking on that fear. So
Lesley,
yeah,
sorry, didn't
carry
mean to
on.
interrupt you
No,
because I know you have some concrete tips to share with us when we get to that about not buying into that. But I wanted to make a little bit of an observation here because you're reminding us this isn't coming from us, it's coming from the outside. And it's clear to me that it's engineered, that this is deliberate and it always has been, about disempowering humanity. But one of the other factors that's really powerful that I think needs to be identified is markets represent self-fulfilling prophecies.
Absolutely.
When everybody is expecting contraction and contracts, that becomes the result. And I'll remind us a little bit amusingly at how that works. There was a significant toilet paper shortage 5 years ago because they announced a toilet paper shortage and everybody bought up all the toilet paper.
Absolutely.
So no, we're all laughing.
Yeah.
And I hope everybody that's watching is remembering that in a humorous way. But I want to remind us as well, that's how scarcity happens. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So not only do we have the opportunity to not take that in for our own reality screen and choices, but we have the opportunity not to buy into creating that shortage. So I just couldn't contain myself with that. So sorry.
Absolutely. And out of every crisis comes opportunity. You just have to decide which side of the line you are going to fall on, opportunity or crisis. And some people will be listening in and they'll be saying, oh, well, it's okay for you, blah, 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 blah. If you want to believe that, if you want to believe it's okay for me, I have choices that you don't, then you are not going to take on the required behavior that allows you to make different choices. And that is why during COVID, as Susan said, certain people went into certain opportunities having never had that experience before. They didn't sit back and go, well, I've never actually sold PPE. I've got nothing to do with it whatsoever. They saw an opportunity and they grabbed it. And this is my
It was called pivoting in those days.
It's called pivoting. Exactly. I know I have invested more over the last 2 weeks than I usually invest in a short time frame, because I recognize the market is at a low point at the moment. So it means share prices are down. I'm buying low. So I know the market is going to return, because this is what happens. It happened in 2008 in the Lehman Brothers crash. It happened in 2020 when we had COVID. It's happening. It happened again during the start of the Ukraine war. It's happening now because of all the reasons we know what is happening now. But it's how you react to it. And I know that when we are fearful, a lot of people move to the scarcity side of things. And that is what drives the behavior physically in our bodies, where we are unable any longer to be solution focused. Because when we are in a state of scarcity, financial stress, our cortisol levels rise. And when our cortisol levels rise, we either have fight, flight, or freeze. And when you are in any of those modes, you cannot sit down and help yourself out of that situation. And I started off by saying we are too connected. And I know Jenny in particular, and I think Laurie might be the same, doesn't watch the news. Now, I do. I do watch the news, but I watch the news because I know how to control, I hope I know by now, my reaction to what is going on, basically. But actually, if you feel the news is too stressful, it's not serving you, it is not something that is going to help you to be in a mindset of being able to serve yourself and serve those around you, then take away that very thing that is causing you stress. It's a little bit like, when it's too hot in the summer, in America, you turn your air conditioning on. When it's too cold in the winter, you turn your heating on. You do what you physically need to support you. And when you recognize that the actions that are happening, for whatever reasons they're happening, are causing you to move into a fearful state, you take yourself away from what is causing that fearful state. And I can honestly say, over the last 12 months, probably a little bit longer, I have really worked on my sense of abundance, my sense of gratitude, and what I have, not what I don't have. There are always things we want more of, but actually, we don't tend to appreciate the things we absolutely do have until we get a painful reminder of comparing yourself to somebody else, seeing what they've lost, recognizing you still have your health, you still have your friends, you still have a roof over your head, you still have the ability to pay for your groceries, you still have clients coming to you, you still have the ability to pivot if you need to pivot. And I think for me, being able to reflect on what I have, being grateful for it, and then being able to see, actually, my state of mind is a choice. How I let somebody's thoughts and feelings impact me, that is a choice. And I probably have not had more things happen to me positively from a business perspective than I have over the last 12, 15 months or so. I've had award nominations, I've had collaborations that have brought me, huge amount of opportunity. I've had income coming to me when I hadn't necessarily expected it to come from the avenues it's come from. I've had people approaching me, wanting to work with me. Why? My energy, my ability to not take on board all the negativity. And why? because the evidence was created back in 2020. In 2020, when I started training as a business coach and from there as a money coach, I entered into COVID in the same way probably everybody did, full of fear. What was going to happen? Were we going to be able to pay the mortgage? Were we going to be able to ever go out and socialize again and catastrophize, etc., etc.? And what I saw happen in my other business, that when you pivot what you do, when you give access to what you do in a different way, when people respond positively to that, you get positive results. So in my other business, my husband and I, we created the evidence of what was possible when you feel your back is against the wall, but others are dependent on you. And rather than sit and think, who is going to come and save me? What are the government going to introduce that's going to make things easier for us? If we had done that, we'd have lost our business. We'd have lost our home. We possibly would have to have gone to food banks, etc., etc. But we didn't. We looked at our internal resources and we made it work. And I think the situation we are in now with what is going on, and again, I'm not going to get political about it, but with what is going on, I think we have a bigger opportunity to actually think about, how do I want this to affect me? And what do I need to do that it doesn't affect me in the way the media, in a way commentators, in a way people on Facebook, etc., want me to react, and to let go of that connectivity.
Lesley,
Lesley, you said such powerful things. I'm sorry, Jenny, go ahead.
I wanted to swing it a little bit back to you for a moment,
Yeah.
because, if you're listening and you haven't listened to the episode that was led by Lesley about wealth hacking, or what did we call it?
Biohacking your wealth.
Biohacking your wealth. I think we, on that
Or
episode,
your finances or something like that.
biohacking. It is brilliant. And she gives lots of amazing tips that we all took so much away from, how to kind of be in this embodiment of creating wealth. And Lesley, I have only known you, I think, for just over a year at this point, kind of building up to this moment. And you are extremely inspiring to me for many different reasons, but I have watched you really step into the embodiment of your work. And it has been so beautiful to see, like you were saying, everything that's been coming in from every different angle, without the effort. You've been watering for so long, and now the flowers are coming out, and I think it's really important for people to know that when you're working with someone like a money confidence coach like Lesley, that person is truly an embodiment of their own work. And, I would love to know your thoughts, because we really, the four of us sitting here, have really been watching you. Well, the three of us have been watching you, really take on all of these amazing roles from all over the world, and I would love to know a little bit more about that, because I think that, like, for me, I get stuck in a, oh, I'm not going to put this out yet because I need to learn more, or, I need to take this course, or I need to do this. And, I really feel like you have just stepped in, and it's like, learn as you go, and then you keep hitting all these milestones. Am I kind of on the right track with that?
Absolutely smashed it out of the park. That is exactly it. For me, it is feeling the fear and doing it anyway, and recognizing that I was doing all the things you've just said, Jen. I was trying to learn more. I was trying to hold myself back. How is this post going to be received? What are people going to be thinking? And it was the moment that somebody said to me, probably about four-ish years ago, nobody else can make you feel anything. Only you can. And that stopped me absolutely in my tracks, because anybody saying, thinking, behaving in a negative way towards me, ultimately, they are not putting food on my table. Ultimately, they're not paying my mortgage. Do they matter? They do not matter. And I have a phrase that those who matter do not mind. Those who mind do not matter. And somebody said that to me again about 4 or so years ago. And that really, really resonated with me. And now I am like Teflon. I really am like Teflon, because for most of us in this connected world, we utilize social media a lot. Social media can be a ball ache and a bitch, to use, both sides of the coin there, basically. Um, but it can also be a really great way of building a network, building an audience, building connection. And I don't enter into the negative side at all. If someone's being a bitch, I don't join in that happy conversation, because normally when someone's being a bitch, there's something massively negative going on for them, and they're trying to feel better by pulling somebody else down. Wise to that game, not going to play it. And money confidence, our relationship with money, is totally and utterly linked to our relationship with ourselves, our sense of self-worth and self-value. And when your sense of self-worth and self-value is not connected to anybody else, their validation, them seeing your value, then actually you can step into your power and you can show up as you, because you're not worried about what somebody else is thinking, what somebody else's behavior or reaction, etc., is going to be. Doesn't mean I don't feel that fear. Doesn't mean I don't sometimes have a word with myself and judge myself. I do, because you have to keep doing the mindset work. I think for some people, they think when it comes to confidence building, when it comes to money mindset, when it comes to assured self-confidence, they think, oh, I'll get a coach. I'll do a course for 12 weeks. They'll wave a magic wand and then I'll be sorted. No, it's never one and done. It is work that has to keep being done. You have to keep being challenged. You have to keep looking for the challenge, because it's only when you are challenged will you actually grow. And for me, I want to keep on growing. And I can only keep on growing by taking a huge stride out of that comfort zone and going, oh my God, it's a bit scary here. But actually going, yeah, but we've done scary before. And when you've done scary before and you're still here, you can do scary again. So you
And
absolutely
Lesley,
described my
how
journey.
fulfilling is it to step forward with something that is such a powerful form of self-expression, and have that accepted in the world, rather than showing up and doing a job or tasks that somebody else has set out, of actually going forth with your self-expression and having that received. I made an observation years ago that I think maybe is relevant here, that when we get to the point that we are really clear about a gift and a vision or a superpower, as I call them, that we have, that we are here to share with the world, logically, when we're holding something that we're that passionate about, I can pretty much promise you that there's nobody out there that wants to stop you more than you want to make it happen. And that was an interesting way that I thought to think about that years ago, when we had much less fertile ground for these ideas than we do now.
Yeah.
But there's almost no out there. And let's face it, when we succeed, everybody changes their tune. Oh yeah, we knew they were going to do it all along.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Laurie, you look as though you wanted to come in.
I it's been bubbling up since about 20 minutes ago, but I've been percolating on it. So here's the thing. This is what I'm hearing from what you're saying, is that there's really not a lot more going on today than there was perhaps even 50 years ago. The reality is that it's in our faces. Okay, I don't watch the news, and I honestly used to not know a lot of stuff, and I was okay with that because I'm here to do and bring my gifts forward, and I don't need to know every little detail about what's going on out in the ethers. But now, because I'm on social media, I know everybody who died. I know everybody who's getting bombed. I know all the tariffs. I mean, like, it's in our faces all the time. So that's the entire state of consciousness is being impacted in a far more powerful way. Because I assure you, this same shit was going on 50 years ago. We
Yep.
just didn't hear about it every day. And
Exactly
now
that.
everybody's getting all crazy and all scary. And so what do you tell people? Okay, people like myself, Jenny, probably Susan too, we're empaths, okay? So the on top of everything else, we feel the mass consciousness more profoundly than the average person. And I'm sure this is the case for a lot of our listeners. So not only are we controlling our own inner fears and our own inner concerns, I mean, I can get past my stuff. I'm feeling all this out here coming at me. What would you recommend to someone like that? Because we have a lot of those people in our audience.
Yeah. And it's very hard. When you are an empath, it can be very, very hard to bat stuff away. But with the greatest respect, sometimes we can give ourselves these labels and we will proudly wear that label, and that label is not serving us. And I think when a label is not serving you, you have to think, why am I wearing this label? Am I using it as an excuse for my behavior? Am I using it as a reason to not change how I approach things? Am I serving anybody by taking on other people's fear and worry? Or would it be better if I became for them a channel of somebody who was able to deal with for themselves how to react to what is going on? Because I do think an empath, in terms of my sacred money archetypes, so an assessment that I use, an empath can be considered to be very close to a nurturer, and a nurturer will take on other people's issues as though they were their own, thinking that is helping that person. But if you're taking on somebody else's load and not actually coming up with a solution for them, I feel you. What good is that? I feel you. There is no value to be had in that. I feel you. How can I help you? How can we move forward? That is helping. But simply collectively taking on an energy that may only be created by that little group, basically, who is absorbing other people's feelings, I don't think that is particularly helpful. I think we can wear labels and use that to satisfy our own limiting beliefs.
I think it goes beyond that. This is where I'm going to have to disagree with you, because I work with a lot of empaths. I work with a lot of highly sensitive people. It's not a label. It's very real. I have had experiences personally in my own life, and I've learned how to move past it. But it's not easy to learn to move past. I literally processed an entire evening something that was going on in the party while I was in the lower level with my shaman talking about it, because I didn't even know it was possible. I was literally processing the other person's emotions. And I mean, that's nothing I ever set out to do.
Mm-hmm.
was shocked that you even could do it. So I think it's a skill set, and we really have to not just say it's a label. I am not going to say that was a label. That was something that was in my nature that gave me that ability to feel on that level. And there are a lot of other people who have had these experiences as well. And these people need tools. So I love you, and I think your work is amazing, but I think, you know, we come at these things from different levels, and the people that you reach and the people that I reach are entirely different. So I think we need to
But
just
is that not the whole point though? Is that not, because I have worked with many people who will claim to be empaths and will start off saying, I'm an empath and this is how I feel about things. And, you know, I don't want to be seen to be, you know, talking about money because I recognize people out there are struggling at the moment. I don't want to put my prices up because we're in an environment where, so, you know, I only want to be doing these things. Well, actually, that isn't serving anybody. Now, not all coaches are going to be for all people. Absolutely. And I think that is a really clear point to make. But I also do think it is about taking on individual responsibility, not just collective responsibility. Because, you know, a number of my clients will come in and they will recognize by the end of the process, they have taken on a mantle, label, whatever you want to call it. They have taken on a role that has not served them. And if something is not serving you, why would you carry on that same behavior? Because if you're carrying on the same behavior and getting the same results, who is that on? It's on
Lesley,
you
you
as the
know, I
individual.
sense, as often happens in life, that we get to a point that I call, it's probably not either or, it's probably both and.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I can think of many examples, honestly, of people who do what we call arguing for their limitations. And I think you're speaking to that to some extent.
Yeah, I do agree.
That,
Yeah.
you know, we'll take that on because it
Fight
actually
for your
supports our
limitations, you get to
staying
keep them.
stuck and providing excuses. On the other hand, I also know people who have a nervous system that is way more sensitive and impressionable than the public at large. And that's a real thing.
Yeah.
And those people benefit greatly from the skill set that Lori was referring to of learning how to manage that, because there's another skill set needed when you are that, you know, kind of open to the world. So I think there's an awareness to have that both of these things are probably true in our world.
Absolutely.
And that there is a group that really does benefit from realizing that they are more impressionable, whether they want to be or not. And it's not necessarily a choice,
Well,
but
I'm
there
gonna
is a choice to develop the skills to be more resilient and protected. And I think that's maybe where we want to look.
Yeah, I want to jump into something that Lesley, you know, I took away from one of the very first meetings that we had, and it was you talking about awareness. And it was about awareness of where you're at financially, you know, and looking at that instead of just shying away and trying to ignore it. And I think this is much of the same thing. Being aware of what you are and who you are and how you handle things, you know, that goes pretty far when you're actually trying to do the work. You know, you have to first start with awareness. So whether you are an empath or not, you know, whether you take on this collectively or individually or however you kind of start this journey and where your nervous system is at, when you're starting this work, you have to be aware of what it is, you know, and where you're coming from. So, yeah. And Lesley, I wanted, you know, you are a really powerful coach in this area. And, you know, like you said, consistency is key. It's about continuing to do the work. Nobody just hires a coach and then there's this magic wand at the end of your sessions and boom, you're, you know, everything's solved.
You're
You're going to be a millionaire. Yeah, it's fixed. So what would you say, you know, because it is about continuing to do the work. Do you have, maybe just a little tidbit for our audience of kind of some points that you like to provide, kind of tools that you see that people can carry on and continue the work with from what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is about envisaging the life that you want to have and being really aware of what could be holding you back in that right now. So having that connection to your future self and asking yourself, saying, writing down, in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, this is the kind of life, I want to be leading. What are the things I have to stop and start doing in order to achieve those things? And very often, the list of what we have to stop doing is longer than the list of the things we have to start doing. And you have to remember, I think, that people don't come to me if they are not ready to create change, because why would you come to a coach in the first place if you thought everything was as it should be? They come to me when they recognize that what they are doing is not serving them. They'll have tried to do things for themselves. They'll have read books. They'll have listened to podcasts. And for some people, that's enough of a change. But for a lot of people, they actually need challenge, because for any of us to create change, there is usually a challenge that has to happen. So when you connect with your future self and you are really honest about, well, if I want to be financially independent, if I want to have financial stability, if I want to scale my business, why haven't I done it already? What are the reasons, the real reasons why I haven't done it already? Then take away the external reasons, because you might say, it's the current climate we're in. It's what's going on in the economy. It's because I need to know more. It's because I need to have more qualifications. Take all those things away, because for every excuse you give yourself, there'll be other people who are creating that success, even though they're less qualified than you, even though they're working in the same economy as you, even though. So it is about getting really, really painfully uncomfortable with what is stopping you, and then setting about understanding, what is the conversation I'm having with myself? Because for most of us, it is that internal conversation. We get really, really excited. I'm going to go and do this. I'm going to go and talk at this conference. I'm going to go and have this stand at this event. No, I'm not, because it's too expensive, because no one will buy from me. I'll forget what I want to say on stage. Oh, I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. And that's what usually happens. It is that sequence of events that normally stops us. So when you work with me, I really challenge my clients. I make them feel really, really uncomfortable. At points in time, they don't particularly like me because I've made them feel so uncomfortable. But it's in that discomfort that you actually uncover what it is that is not working for you. And things like visualizations, having conversations, hypnosis works beautifully, because it continues to feed into that subconscious messaging. The battle starts to go on, but the positive side of what you want to happen starts knitting together. And it is about really challenging yourself and that sense of awareness, actually, because if we're not challenging our behaviors, that's a really important bit to remember. If you are not challenging your behaviors, you are choosing your results. And I think for a lot of people, they'd rather choose their excuses. They would rather say, well, I keep doing all the stuff, but it's not happening. Well, if you're doing all the stuff and it's not happening, you're clearly not doing the right stuff. And it's only by identifying, this is the result I want, this is what I am doing, that's not working, what do I need to do to change it? Then you can make a choice. You do the stuff that you're not doing, that makes you feel really uncomfortable, or you stay exactly where you are, doing the same things and not getting the results. And that might sound really hard for some of our listeners to hear. But they'll also be going, actually, it's true. Because for all our excuses, there'll be other people who've taken those excuses, not accepted them, and are doing something else. So for me, it is about creating awareness, working out where you are, where you want to get to, what you are not doing to get there, and what are you going to do to get there. And in between all of that, then, I've got the tools around hypnosis, around timeline therapy, around pure coaching, around what's the word I'm looking for, beginning with NLP.
Hey.
Couldn't remember. Around NLP. There's so many tools that we have that can help us to move forward. And when you do move forward, I am the perfect example of that, because I've used all my tools on myself. The results, the energy, the self-belief, the money confidence, it all follows basically. Does that answer you,
Lesley,
Jen?
I love that you mentioned hypnosis, and I'm going to jump in. I'm going to make a hypnotic suggestion here, because I'm guessing that many people in our audience didn't have the awareness at the beginning of this episode that they do now, that a lot of what's been running them has been unconscious and manipulated from the outside. So with the awareness that we now have from this conversation, I also have hypnotic skills. I want to make the suggestion that we all use this insight as a kind of aha to realize that we don't need to be on automatic, that we don't need to be manipulated without awareness of having another choice to not go down that path, that we have the opportunity rather than crisis of looking at things with a different perspective of what is now available to us, and allow that to contribute to the being that we are, that can function in this world in a more empowered way that you are demonstrating for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think that that is a massive part of what I want people to take on, is that we have a choice what we allow to penetrate here. We have a choice how we go to sleep, what we think about, how we wake up, what we think about, and how we take action. And I think I approach everything now with curiosity, with I'll say yes first, and then I'll work out the how. And I'm absolutely bloody, for something you said, Susan, I am absolutely bloody grateful beyond anything that I get to make these choices. And I think that is it. The choices don't always end up being the right choices, but I take responsibility. They were my choices based on my decisions, my behaviors, and I own the results. And I think when that happens, that is what, for me, is something to be grateful for.
And Lesley, I'm going to reflect that back to you, and this is probably a completion here, because you used the word grateful. And you mentioned a number of times, in this conversation, the awareness that you have of everything being energy and frequency. And gratitude is such a high vibration that I'm going to say my biggest takeaway, because we're wanting some concrete tips for our audience. My biggest takeaway of how I can intervene in this unconscious stuff that others are trying to impose on me is what you kind of ended with. I can be grateful that I have the awareness that I have other choices to make. And that vibrationally is a very, very powerful way, I think, to potentially remove us from that, already always conversation that we've been trapped in. So that's my takeaway. Anything that we can hold in gratitude is the opposite of victimhood.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if I can make one recommendation, to our listeners, and I'm struggling to remember the name of the book, but I actually know where this attitude started. This attitude of gratitude started in January 2022, when
Okay.
it was recommended to me that I read the book by Rhonda Byrne, not The Secret, the one on from that, where you do 30 days of gratitude. It's a book that takes you through
Okay.
gratitude for everything. Those people you don't like, those things that you love, those things you want more of, those things, parts of you, you don't love, etc., etc. That was the moment. Those 30 days absolutely changed my life without a shadow of a doubt. So this has all come from gratitude. It's not something that happened like that. It was exactly as Jenny said. It built up over a period of time. But that journey starting in 2022 was called something like The Gift. As you wrap up, I'll go into my Audible and try and find it so I can share the actual name. If I don't manage to get there before the end of the episode, we'll put it into the show notes anyway, because that book, I've got it, The Magic. The Magic. And honestly, The Magic is literally game changing. Anybody listening to this, I recommend you do it, because it makes all the difference.
Right. Thank you. And it reminds me, Lesley, we've talked about another book, The Having. And gratitude is about focusing on what we have. So there's no getting around it, that the way to remove ourselves from this other downward spiral that is going on out there is to realize we have the choice to do that, and that there are all kinds of other energies available to us and tools right here. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Lesley. I hope our audience was as inspired as I feel by what you had to share with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to be in the spotlight, ladies. Really appreciate it.
And again, we welcome your comments and all of that good stuff. This is an important conversation. So thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you again next week.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Women's Wealth and Wellness Unleashed, where we empower women to take control of the two most important areas of their life: their health and their wealth. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with another amazing woman who's ready to elevate her wealth and wellness journey. Stay connected with us by heading to our website and joining our Facebook community. All the details can be found in the show notes. Until next time, keep thriving and unleashing your highest potential.